Hey guys, Hollow1 here. Welcome back to another video, and today, I owe you guys something. Regulars to my channel will be very familiar with this locomotive. This is my Lionel 1989 release of the Reading T1, and it used to have digital RailSounds. It does not anymore. I repainted this engine and I redid the chuff in the tender in my last video of this, so that it had 2 chuffs per revolution. And then I said, screw it, I'm just going to completely redo this. So I did. It now has a DC can motor, it has electric railroad cruise control, and it has RailSounds 4.0 that I wired into this thing. That was an adventure, and I'll show you the inside of this tender when I do an in-depth review of this locomotive. So that review never ended up happening. And in any of the subsequent videos I've done on this engine, I have never actually taken the shell off of the locomotive and the tender and shown you guys the internals of this thing. So today, that's what we're going to do, mainly because I have to fix some stuff. At Tiger Tracks this past December, I went to go run this thing and it just started falling apart. Apparently, the excessive vibration of a U-Haul trailer being pulled 300 and some miles one way and then pulled that same distance back really messed some stuff up. So we're going to take this engine apart. I'm going to show you guys all the upgrades I did to this thing, and then we're going to patch them up and make it good as new. So I've got the engine in my cradle here. I have taken off the pilot truck and thus the pilot. And there are 3 screws that hold it in. There are 2 underneath the firebox in their usual position, and then there's 1 underneath the smoke box in its usual position. There are 2 screws in line with the steam chest. Those remove the steam chest. They don't remove, or I think they remove the smoke unit actually. They don't remove the boiler. You can also open up the front of the engine, and then there's a light bulb in there that you can unhook from its little housing if you're worried about breaking that when you take it out. But this is Lionel 6-18006. This is the digital RailSounds, originally digital RailSounds Reading T1. There were 2 versions, or there's 2 models that Lionel made of the T1. There's this one, and then there's the legacy version, which looks way better, and the electronics for which are actually in my Reading G3 and sound incredible. So anyway, I'm going to pull this off here, and you will see there's really not much to it. My smoke unit came out. Oh, I forgot it had that issue. Right. Yeah, I am making dinner at the same time I'm recording this, because that's what happens when you work 10-hour shifts. It's like 6:30 at night at this point. So, anywho, I may actually be able to fix this now. But before I get into repairs, this originally had a Lionel Pullmore motor. It had a E-unit, honestly one of the quietest E-units I had ever heard, and the smoke unit, which is still here, sort of. Keen-eyed viewers will note that the E-unit is not here, and this is not a Pullmore motor. This is a DC can motor of some sort. It's probably a Cannon. I don't think it's a Pitman. It looks a little small for that, but it was installed, well, so what I had done was I had taken the Pullmore out with the U-joint, and I sent it over to Timco's Repair Depot, who did a whole lot of these modifications, and he was able to press off the U-joint and press this U-joint onto the can motor. He is no longer with us. I think he passed away in 2022-ish. I'm not 100% sure. There are other people now who do similar things, and they do these can motor upgrades. You just kind of have to dig around on OGR forums to figure out who they are, because I do not know, because I haven't needed to do another one of these upgrades since then. So, yeah. DC can motor allows me to put cruise control in the tender. But it runs really smooth, it's very quiet, very nice. He had these mounts for this engine. He had them for, I think, the L3 Mohawk that was digital RailSounds, and a couple of other engines. The main one that I really wish I had bought, hindsight being 2020, was he had a mount for a DC can motor to a Pullmore motor equipped GP9 or GP7. And I would have loved to have put that in my purple diesel so that I could give it cruise control, but oh well, it was not to be, so that will be the way that is. But yeah, so that's all there really is in here. Very simple. Again, all the guts are really in the tender. But what I need to do here is, one, I guess, fix the smoke unit, and two, I need to fix this connector, because this is what vibrated itself to pieces when I was going to Rochester. This wire pulled out of this pin, and it had done it before, and I had figured out how to pull the pin out, get the wire in, sort of reconnect it, and then fish it back through, and it worked for a while, but obviously it has since failed. So I did get a JST 4-pin connector, and I think that's just what I'm gonna replace this with that, because those are easier to get a hold of. I cannot find these connectors. I have no idea where Lionel sourced these from, and I can't find old Lionel parts unless I buy an actual parts engine, because this one is the 5-pin. Because it was so early, this was before TMCC. Once TMCC came out, and I want to say the Chesapeake and Ohio Yellow Belly was the first one. Once that era came, this switched to a 6-pin, and those are relatively easy to find. It's much easier to find a 6-pin than it is a 5-pin. So yeah, there's that. And yes, there's only 4 pins. There is a 5th slot. I don't know why. I don't know what it was used for, but it's there. Anyway, I'm going to be replacing that with a JST connector because that's just going to be better. If I really want to get frisky, I may replace it with... Actually, no, I can't do that because I would need a motor mount. Or I need a connector mount down here, and I don't have one. So yeah, JST 4-pin connector is what we're going to be doing. Before I get started on that, I should probably actually explain the smoke unit. So when I bought this engine, this is not the original smoke unit that was in it. I have it, but that smoke unit sucked. Didn't really produce smoke. When it did, it was very intermittent. Was not great. So I figured the smoke unit was bad because I was a lot younger and stupider back then. So I bought a new smoke unit, put this new smoke unit in, and this smoke unit, which is the one I put in, sucks. This smoke unit design was it was bad. Very, very few. I have seen very few videos of this engine running with good smoke output unless somebody has completely changed the smoke unit. I have a couple ideas for how to improve this, but the main issue I faced when I put in this new smoke unit is the thread for this smoke unit did not match the thread for the original smoke unit. I didn't have the hardware that I have just lying around back then like I do now, so I had actually filled this with solder to make that electrical connection, and as you can imagine, that didn't work for crap. So I'm going to try to pull all this solder out and actually put a screw back into this thing so that I have a good ground to my smoke unit, and the hot line is, it's wired. It's not going to go anywhere. But yeah, so that's the two things that need to happen in here. Smoke unit needs to get fixed, and I need to add a harness. So I got the connector on. I didn't want to show you guys that because it's quite boring. Just a lot of soldering. But I also painted it black. Still waiting for the paint to dry so I can do a second coat. But I'm hoping this helps hide it a little bit better. I don't know. We'll see. It's still a big old connector. But anyway, I did have a screw that fit the smoke unit. I had one screw that fit the smoke unit, and it was way too long, so I just spent, 15 minutes sanding it down with 220 grit because I didn't want to get out my Dremel. And yeah, it fits now, and I can still move the plunger. And I get a little bit of pressure out the top, which is, that's what you want. I think I'm going to just run a wire probably from this grounding prong back here up to this post where there's already the ground for the headlight. Just because, I think that's probably wise to not just rely on that one screw. And maybe that'll help fix some of my smoke problems. I don't know. But yeah, so let me quick rig something up for that. And then I think that'll do it for the internals of the locomotive. Unless I really want to dig into the smoke unit. I'm debating putting batting in it. It doesn't currently have any. The original one also didn't have any. Batting just makes smoke units work better, but I don't know. We'll see. I'm going to start with that ground wire, and then I'll decide how much I want to dig into that. Well, I figured out why the smoke didn't work. This is the resistor that was in it, and if you can't tell, it's a little fried. This is actually broken, and there is no resistance, or I guess infinite resistance, between one end and the other, because this wire is broken. So, I have another 18 ohm resistor. I don't know what this one was originally. I would assume an 18, but I don't know. But I figure I'll throw this one in and put this little sleeve back on that Lionel says does nothing and you should probably keep off. But yeah, this is all that is, and I'm debating putting some batting in there to help absorb the smoke fluid. The thing is, I don't really use the smoke that much on this engine. I actually use it so infrequently that I installed a smoke on-off switch so that I could turn it off because I didn't want to burn this up. So, yeah, I don't know. I guess I have the batting, so it wouldn't take too much to stuff some in there. But, yeah, I guess I'll go do that. Alright, smoke units back together. I did solder all the grounds into just one connection. Two reasons I did that. One, I think this looks a lot better, and, well, maybe it doesn't look better, but, like, it feels better to have it all in one big solder knot, and then, instead of using that screw. The second reason is I stripped that screw, so I couldn't get any thread, like, engagement at the thickness of, all these wires. So neat. Anyway, I'm going to put this on the test stand, make sure the smoke unit works, and then I need to write down my connections for my 4-pin, and then I can start on the tender. So interestingly, full voltage, nothing happens. I turned it down to there, and if I reach my screwdriver in here to the chuff lever, you can see I got plenty of smoke. Like, actually kind of a concerning amount. Maybe I overfilled it and it's made contact with the resistor and that's why it wasn't working. But you can see it is also coming out of the cylinder chest, which is by design. Yeah, lots and lots of smoke. So, just gonna do this for a little bit and try and run it down because I probably put way too much smoke fluid in. I did also realize I'm going to need to repaint the front handrails again. So that's neat. Thankfully I've already got my painting stuff out. But yeah, anyway. I'm just going to keep doing this and I'll see you guys when I take the tender apart. Okay, so screws are out. I'm going to preface this by saying this was the first real upgrade I ever did. And that is why the wiring is so scuffed. So, yeah. Oh, hey. There's my antenna. Yeah. It's bad. It's real bad. I'm gonna see if I can, clean some of this up, but like, holy cow, what was I thinking? Alright, this looks way better. So I made some connectors. This is the serial 5-volt and common from the Cruise Commander board. That goes into, I believe it's this 3-pin. Yes, this 3-pin. This is the powered motherboard. I don't know if you can get these anymore. This is the Hall effect sensor that goes into this top 3-pin over here. I know that I'm holding it upside down so you can't see the writing. But this, obviously, this looks like trash because I basically destroyed it. I more or less had to rebuild some of these, and you can see that I'm going to need to bend some pins back. So yeah, and then this little 2-pin up here that was a 5-pin is the speaker output. You can run a external potentiometer if you want. I just have mine soldered directly to the board, which may be a reason why it's sounding weird. This engine's always had some weird crackling issues when it tries to make the blowdown sound. It's RailSounds 4. It's the sound card out of the Nickel Plate Road 779. It's a really nice sound set. But I got these. I have 2 of these now. These are Lionel Fat Boys. They're 8 ohm, 1 watt behemoths. They're really heavy. This is what was in it. This is a 16 ohm, what is it, 0.2 watt. So this will be a substantial upgrade, and that 0.2 watt is probably why this speaker didn't sound great. But you can see I originally had this drilled out to use the Electric Railroad, the dual speaker, the dual Baby Fat Boy enclosure, which I actually still have. But I couldn't get great sound out of it, probably because of inexperience and crappy wiring. But I want to try out one of these Fat Boys. So I think I'm going to try shoving this in here and seeing how it sounds. And yeah, so I probably actually need to make a shim for it, looking at it, to lift the speaker up. So, whoop-de-doo. That's fun. I also realized I'm way far ahead of myself here. I need to verify that I actually have the board wired up correctly. So let's see here. I hear that smoke unit sizzling. I believe I had it set to 21. Oh, well. Motor's backwards. Smoke unit's working great, though. It's actually really nice. And yeah, the driveline's very quiet in this thing, which is incredible. So, alright, let me flip the motor leads. I put it in reverse. Yeah. So I'll flip the motor leads and get back into making it so I can't hear the super quiet drivetrain. So just for kicks, I pulled out the original speakers that I had bought for this. This is what I got from Electric Railroad. These are 16 ohm 2 watt speakers wired in parallel, which means that it's an 8 ohm 2 watt speaker. I think wattage carries over. But that's more than 1 watt. So even though this thing is an absolute behemoth, I may try these. This is also very similar to what the Legacy T1 has, so I know that fundamentally it should be fine. I don't know. But I'm going to chalk up the bad sound quality when I first got them to just terrible wiring. But yeah, so I think I need to modify this frame to let more air move through these speakers. There are holes cut out here for the second baffle, but I'm going to be putting the RailSounds board there. So I think like cutting out this chunk here would probably work, but I can't get too close to the truck frame. But anyway, I'm just going to plug these in, sit them off to the side of the engine, hear how they sound, see if the quality is decent, and then go from there. Because if these sound like trash, then I'm just going to go back to the Fat Boy. So it makes noise, which that's convenient. Doesn't make great noise. I'm going to seal off the baffle just by putting a little bit of pressure on it. Not sure if you can hear that, but that's the blowdown sound, and it's really crackly. I don't know if that's something wrong with the powered motherboard or my RailSounds card or the speakers are bad here, but I know the wiring's good because I just redid all of it, unless I fried one of these boards the first time I put it together. which isn't an impossibility. But the other interesting thing about it is the chuff. Oh, sorry. Speakers, I'm going to put in this Fat Boy tomorrow. That's not going to be a tonight thing. It's like 11:30 or something like that at night. The chuff I can't get to work with the Hall effect sensor. Originally, I was using the original Hall effect sensor that's on the lead trailing axle of the lead truck on the tender to trigger the chuff rate. And it worked just fine. It gave me 2 chuffs per revolution. For some reason, you can trigger a chuff at a standstill. It doesn't need to be moving. For some reason now, it just won't. I don't know. I'm spinning the Hall effect sensor. It should be triggering, but it's not. So I wanted to test something, and I wanted to see if I took a chuff switch referenced to ground, and I hooked that up to the chuff input on the Cruise Commander board, would that send a chuff signal via the serial data to the powered motherboard? And the answer is yes. You can't hear that because it thinks it's quiet. If I reset it. Yeah, it's doing the quiet chuff. Hold on. There you go. So I can do manual chuffs with this little switch. So that proof of concept is good. And what that means is I have a couple options here. I can either do a 5-pin connector, sure, or I can verify my ground pickup from the tender, and I can take the ground wire, and instead of it being a ground wire, I can make it a chuff signal. So that's reference to ground. And I can put maybe a magnet or something in one of these wheels and put a reed switch on the bottom or something. I don't know. It needs more thought than I have right now. I'm kind of bummed out that the Hall effect sensor doesn't want to work anymore. But, oh well, is what it is. It's old tech. I'm not surprised that it fails. So, yeah. Anyway, that's where I'm going to leave it tonight. It's late. I need to go to bed because I need to work tomorrow. So, yeah. I will talk to you guys the next time I am on this. Okay, so I got the Fat Boy wired up. Let's start this up. It's still very crackly. So I don't think it's the speaker. Okay, you can stop that now. I don't think it's the speaker because the speaker is brand new. So it's probably something with either the RailSounds board or the RailSounds power board, or the powered motherboard here. And I don't have a 2-board motherboard that... I have extra RailSounds power boards, but I don't have a motherboard that I can plug both of these into, and the engines that I would be able to test this board in are currently in my storage unit. So that doesn't really help. I guess I could put it in my Atlantic coastline, and we could see what happens when you put a steam ship in a diesel locomotive. Sure, I guess let's go do that. Actually, real quick, just to baseline it, I put the original speaker that I had in it, which is this factory speaker that came in the locomotive. Put that back in. It still makes the crackling sound. It's just a lot quieter. Okay, let's go test out that RailSounds card. Well, this will be a weird sound demo. Let's see if this works. Oh yeah. That's kind of funny. It crackles a little bit, but not nearly as bad as it does in the T1. And I can't, it doesn't look like it triggers off the reed switch. But that could also just be how diesels are wired. Because they are wired differently than a typical steam engine. Anyway. So yeah, so powered motherboard seems to be my problem. Which kind of sucks because I like how small the packaging is. But I'm going to take a look online and see if I can find a 2-board motherboard for it. And I'll put that in my next Lionel order if they have one. Otherwise, I guess I'm going to have to try to repurpose one of the motherboards that I have. That's probably way too big. I have the original motherboard from this thing that I think is blown up. But I can test out the RailSounds functions and see if they work. Because if that is good, then I can just, throw that in the T1 tender. And hopefully that just works. But, yeah, let me dig around a little bit, come up with some options, and I'll let you know what I find. Alright, so I looked it up, and I cannot find for sale right now a 2-board, like a RailSounds motherboard. So this is what's going to be in it. It's going to be crackly, but whatever. It is what it is. I did go ahead and I put the reed switch in. I've got 2 magnets on it, so hopefully it gives me close to 4 chefs per revolution. I did double check the Hall effect sensor wiring, and I looked up the data sheet and verified that that was hooked up correctly. It still wasn't generating a chuff. So yeah, this is just how this is going to work for right now. That being said, I need to figure out how to mount a speaker in here, and while I could very easily go back to the original speaker, I do want to try and get this guy in here. If not for making this board sound as good as it can, then for future-proofing. And, if I need this speaker for another project that sounds better than this engine, I will have the original speaker that I can just put back in it, and I can pull this speaker out. This engine is honestly not really nice enough for me to dump a ton of money into. I'm not going to be putting Blue Nami in it. I'm not going to be, doing any sort of legacy upgrade or anything like that. If I'm going to do something crazy, I'm either going to put Blue Nami in the MTH T1 that actually has the correct headlight, or I'm going to just be buying the legacy T1. So, yeah, there's that. Anyway, I need to make this surface as flat as possible in order for this speaker to be as flush as it can be. There is a seal on the bottom of it, which is actually quite nice. I just need to make sure that that gets pressed into the metal as best as it can. And I'll probably drill a couple extra holes in here because I'm going to need to get out the Dremel to drill the mounting holes for the speaker anyway. So that's the plan. Let's get to it. Okay, so the speaker is mounted. Let's power it up and make sure that it works. It's still going to sound crackly and whatnot, but I need to verify. It also doesn't have the tender shell on it, which is its baffle, so it's not going to sound loud. Seems to work though. Okay, and then the new chuff switch is on the center axle. Oh, already it pulled the magnet off, so that's great, but it is chuffing. Sweet! I just realized I scraped up my number 1 on my 2101. Oh, that's disappointing. Okay, well, this is what I get for wanting to work on my stuff, because I mess it up. Okay, cool. So the speaker works. I need to glue on the chuff magnets, And then I need to put the tender shell back on, make sure everything fits, and we should be good to go. So it wouldn't be my project if I didn't have a last minute change. I got to looking at these truck frames when I was doing the magnets and realized these are plastic. And that got me thinking, how electrically insulated is the frame? As it turns out, the answer is very. So because the truck frames are plastic, the wheels don't make electrical contact. That also means that the screws that go from the truck frames to the shell do nothing because the truck is plastic. The heatsink mount up here for the triax is not grounded to the board, which is nice. And there's no way for power to get to the frame with the exception of the drawbar, or ground to get to the frame with the exception of the drawbar. This is the only contact path, or conduction path. And if I put a piece of electrical tape around the drawbar tongue on the locomotive, that path goes away, and the tender is now completely electrically isolated. So, what if I made the whole tender shell the antenna? That would definitely make the TMCC reception better. Not that this didn't work. This works just fine. But it does occasionally lose signal and get confused and causes the engine to stop. So if it was the whole tender shell, that would take care of that problem. The whole shell is metal too, which is really neat. So I need to find a point at which I can solder this antenna to. I'm thinking one of the handrails on the deck, or one of the handrails up front. And that should be conductive into the rest of the locomotive, or the rest of the shell. Alternatively, I could just keep it here and just basically like scrape off a path here or put it on this screw that goes to the truck. And there you go. That would be my antenna. So, I don't know. I'm going to figure something out here, though, because that sounds really nice. All right, let's see if everything goes completely bonkers. Does not seem to care. I really wish I had chuffs based on the drivers. Maybe someday. But that would also require me to figure out how to get solid electrical contact from ground to the tender shell, which means I would have to redo my antenna now. And I think this is fine as is. It just doesn't chuff when it's on a test stand, but oh well. Alright, tender shell's back on. I've got the drawbar connected so that I can actually figure out if that's going to ground out for some reason. Obviously, it's not going to be going through corners. It's not going to chuff. But we can at least, get a sense of the sound and see how good it is with the tender shell on. Oh boy, it's going to be loud. Oh yeah.
Plate Road 779, you are clear outbound.
That's really neat. I am having absolutely zero signal issues trying to talk to this engine. It was never really bad. There's a bit of a noise in reverse. That's kind of interesting. It was never really bad, but it wasn't perfect. Like, it would occasionally miss commands, or it would just stall out because it lost signal and stuff like that. But now that I've got the whole tender shell as the antenna, this thing has no problems picking up what I'm telling it. That's really nice. Also, yeah, Speed Step 1 with Electric Railroad is real nice. It's very smooth. Yeah, so I think that's going to do it for at least this stage of this engine's upgrade. So there you have it. That was my tune-up of my TMCC equipped Lionel 6-18006 Reading T1. And every time I upgrade this engine, it always makes more of a difference than I think it will, and these upgrades are no different. While externally it may not seem like much has changed, internally this engine is now more serviceable, it looks better, and I think it's a lot more robust. I also got the smoke unit working, and now we have really good TMCC signal, so I am no longer really afraid of running this thing on a layout. This engine has always been a showpiece because every single time before now that it has gone onto a layout, mine or anyone else's, something has broken. Whether it's wires inside the engine, the harness, wiring inside the tender, the speaker explodes, something like that. There's always a problem with this engine that I need to fix because it is so slapped together. This engine is the epitome of just make it work. I can make it look pretty later, and today was later for some of those upgrades, but for many more, there is still work to be done. The sound quality in this engine still isn't to where I want it. I would like to get rid of that crackling, but in order to do that, I need to get a RailSounds power board, motherboard, and I have the RailSounds board, the RailSounds audio board, but I need to put that configuration in this engine and figure out how to make it all fit. As far as I can tell, nobody is reproducing those RailSounds motherboards, so it's probably going to be on me to figure out how to recreate them and order them and, put them together and put it in this engine. It's not something I'm incapable of doing, but it is a project that is way out of my scope for right now, and I really don't want to dump a ton of time and money into an engine that has already eaten hundreds of dollars from my bank account over the years that I have owned it. So yeah, I hope you all enjoyed, and I hope you all learned something from this engine. I know I have learned a ton about how TMCC works and how it hooks into its various subcomponents from working on this engine, and I'm hoping that as you guys follow along with this engine and my work on it, you guys can learn a little bit with me. So yeah, anyway, I hope you all enjoyed. I am CW Hollow 1, and have a good day, or maybe good night in your case. See ya.